My name's Hannah Rose Thomas. I'm a British artist. I've worked in Sudan and Madagascar and Mozambique during my gap year, and that was all funded through selling my paintings when I was 18. And I've always loved painting, and it was in Africa, actually, coming back from Africa. That was when I first realised I loved people's faces, and it was really to process my first experience of being in Africa and such poverty as well, was to paint these Mozambican women that I'd met in remote villages. The women living in poverty in Mozambique and now refugees that I've met in refugee camps in both Jordan and in the Calais jungle. In Sudan, I worked for a while, just for a few weeks, in an orphanage in Yei. And I was so struck by some of the girls. They were just 9 years old. I remember this one girl, and she'd been rescued from a brothel in Juba. Just 9 years old, and other stories of other children who'd escaped the LRA, and unbelievable stories that they'd experienced. It's evolved to using art to raise awareness for these situations and bringing art into these situations of humanitarian crises. I paint really to express all that I've seen, and which is overwhelming, really, to show the beauty of these people living in such poverty. So I think it's interesting that portraits are normally reserved for the elite, normally reserved for the celebrities. To paint the face of the poor, whether they're refugees or women from remote villages in Mozambique and Sudan, is to show that actually as humans we're all valuable, no matter what race we're from, no matter what background we're from, no matter whether we're rich or poor, young or old. It's to capture that sense that we're all equal, that we're all just as worthy under God. I feel like we've reached a point of compassion fatigue because there's only so much we can hear the news. We have become immune, and that's why I've painted their portraits, is to show that each refugee I've met has such a remarkable story of resilience. They're just humans just like us, to show that shared humanity and to convey something of that. The stories behind them, I think, which is what makes them so powerful, and the fact that each one I've painted I've met personally, and with the language I've been able to hear something of their story. It's been overwhelming to go into the jungle and to see so much suffering in Europe, because in the camps in Jordan there's much more dignity for the refugees there, and it's much more organised, whereas the jungle is just a slum. And I could not believe that this was actually happening in Europe, that this is only an hour away, by ferry, and then you're just 20 minutes away, you're back into the heart of Calais, and in French cafes, and their stories and the situation that they live in, particularly the bitter cold. It just gets into your bones, and lots of them were just living in tents when I first went in December, and so much squalor, and they'd only just put in running water. Particularly one boy, Abdul Rahman, who I met the first time I went when I was in December, and he was 15, and his whole family had been killed in Syria, and I was volunteering as a translator in this clinic, and it's just a temporary clinic, and he'd come in, and he was shaking with trauma, and all of us, all the doctors, and we didn't know what to do. We were all standing around trying to help, and he couldn't speak English, so I translated his story, and he just wanted to be heard, and so we gave him, and his whole family had been destroyed in Syria, and he'd managed to get across and travelled up through Europe alone, sleeping on the streets. He was just 15 years old, and all of us had tears in our eyes. I literally speechless, just to see this. He felt like he was kind of a shadow of a young boy, just all that he'd experienced. I was living in Jordan. I was just 22 at the time. I'd never organised a collaborative art project, let alone in a foreign language in a foreign country, but it's when you're really up your comfort zone, that's when you grow. And I've never felt more alive than when going off to these remote locations in northern Jordan with the tents and just the UNHCR vehicle on my own, just to be able to go to these refugee centres and get the local guys all involved in. They'd have the group of Syrian children there already, and just would be getting them painted. It's a miracle that they've turned out works of art, because it was absolute chaos at times, you know, children painting one another. Sometimes there was so much paint that we were all sliding around in the tents everywhere, and women in their burqas came in and all wanted to get involved, and they were just like the mothers of the children, and everyone just wanted to get involved, and I couldn't believe it. It was the way it all worked out, and it was such a privilege, and having the language and just breaking down those barriers. And I think the arts is something universal to every single culture, whether it's painting, music, drama, you know, it's innate to us as humans, and so it's something that that we can all connect with. The haven is such an important idea. The concept behind it, to create a space where the artists can go and where they feel safe and understood, particularly at times when you go through those ups and downs, and when the world can feel overwhelming and hard. To have somewhere where you feel nurtured and understood and accepted is very important when you feel fragile. I can speak only from my own experience. It's been because I can speak that the reason I do the art projects for people in distress is that I know the therapeutic value of art for myself. So that's been my way of processing times of real pain and difficult things, traumas in my life and experiences that I've had, is through painting, and getting immersed in creating beauty out of it has been my way of processing that. But it's not really something when you're in the middle of it that you can really explain to those around you who may feel concerned that you have withdrawn, or that you're not so present around them, and can't really understand. But it's not really something you can fully express, and it's not really something necessarily that people would fully understand other than other creatives a lot of the time, because I don't think there are many artists or musicians or actors or people involved in the creative industry who haven't had those times that I know of, that they haven't. It almost comes of a need. There is a need to create almost because of it as well, to bring beauty out of it, to make sense of that pain, to articulate it somehow, and yeah, to bring it and turn it into something beautiful.